it rolls. You're having people over to sing tonight.
Yeah, we're having some people over. It's been a while.
That's
For
a good
some
thing.
reason, we did it so much. There was this. We had some neighbors over COVID where we would go over to their fire
And sing.
and
Singing around a fire.
we would sing songs.
Around a fire. Were you the leader? Are you the scout leader on songs singing around the fire?
I think you could say that. It's really interesting because of this whole, the phenomenon of, like, there's a party going on and then someone shows up with a guitar and it's just like, like,
Well,
it's
you've always been very worried about being that guy.
that's
I've been
business.
now a part of several sing-alongs. I've never seen anyone wince. I've seen people clap enthusiastically. I mean,
Yeah.
sing-alongs that you have led and that I've tried to assist you with here and there. But
It's the great-
you're
yeah.
always worried about losing perspective and going too far or too long or too something.
Well, I guess that's what I want to talk about. So that's an interest. You just said something. Like, is that the problem? Is because the way that I've seen the problem represented of the person who usually it's a guy shows up to a party with a guitar and everybody's just like face palms because they're like, oh my God, this party's going to be ruined now because now this dopey guy's going to
Right.
like take
That's
over
true.
and like, let me sing you this song that I just wrote.
Right.
Whatever.
Let me turn all heads to me.
To me, and also, let's play Wonderwall by Oasis or whatever, and it's just like this. And
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that goes through all the party goers' heads, but I take your point.
this is one example that I saw. I think I saw that in a movie where somebody was just like, hey, check this out.
And after all, yeah. Well, I certainly, I could imagine that if I was having a nice time. Well,
it's a trope.
If I was having a nice time at a party, chatting with people, and someone I don't really know shows up with a guitar, I might be like, it's not what I said. But there's a time and place where a sing-along... yeah. There's a time and a place where a sing-along around a fire or not around a fire is just great, Nighttime sing-along and people have some drinks and it's just like great.
Yeah. Well, it's one of my favorite things.
Well, especially when people can join up.
Haunted by that.
Yeah, maybe this is a key thing. What if it's about people have the option to join, but they don't have to? Because I was just thinking about all the settings where I've seen you as part of sing-alongs. It's like it starts somewhere, and people want to come to that, people want to moth to that flame, they can. And they don't want to moth to that flame, they don't have to. But maybe that's the face-palming about the party thing, is if it's a small enough setting where now you're going to take over and there's not going to be another option, that's maybe face-palming. But if it's just like you go out into the, backyard and over around there, whoever wants to do that, do that. Maybe that hits the mark. How's that feel?
I guess what I'm looking for, I am looking for something from you right now or from the universe in general to clarify.
We're up for it, me and the universe.
The line between this is cool and this is not cool. And so, like, this is intrusive and unwanted, and this is welcome and wanted. And I actually think that the really tricky part is, in my experience, because I have been the guy with the guitar a lot, and it's been to the point where people have asked me to be the guy. These people are like, bring your guitar to this party because we want to do that thing that happened the last time. And I've noticed there's a fundamental problem is that there's a lot of people who really like it and some people who really don't. And the people that like it don't understand so much the people who don't like it. And they're thinking, okay, yeah, they could go to a different part of the house or a different part, it's just like, it's not going to dominate the whole thing. And yet I'm trying to figure out, like, the bummer for them, I think sometimes is I was having a nice conversation with somebody and now they're leaving because they like this face palmy stuff. And now the party's not fun because I don't really like that. And then everybody else, not everybody, but enough people do like it. So then, okay, now I guess the party now stinks for me. So there's no clean win with this one.
I guess that's true.
I
don't know if I don't think there's no clean win, but I was sort of happy with the line you just sort of blew right past my great insight, which was the ability to choose to participate or not. I mean, you already one-upped it by saying people lose even if they choose not to participate because they lose their playmates. But I do think that might be the line where it's welcome. It's like, yeah, someone brought a guitar, they're over in that room, or they're over in the backyard, or they're over in that corner of the yard, or wherever it is, and join them if you want them. And then maybe it gets bigger, it gets smaller, and then people are still mixing and mingling. The thing that I can even think of an example, not you, of someone just like marching in, and all of a sudden, people are in a house, and all of a sudden they're like, singing the song that I brought back from the hills. It's just like, oh, okay, yeah, we were all doing fine before you started performing. But when I've seen you do sing-alongs, you're not performing. I mean, you're performing in a fun sort of let's all get into this sort of way, but you're not sitting down for a concert. You're just like sitting there, and you sing and people join in. I think that line might be the line. If people have choice to participate or not to, then it seems like a welcome thing, especially if the hosts are the one that asked you to do it.
Yeah. So tonight was explicitly, people were invited over for a music,
that seems safe.
It's like, if you're coming here,
right.
But we do have some friends who have been involved in these things before, and they're the ones who sort of like always try to be somewhere else, and they're sort of like, you can sort of feel this sort of like, this isn't my thing. And there is a slight moment where you're like, well, should we invite them? It's just like, or should we take the hint, because you don't want to exclude people,
right.
This is I know I wonder how many people have this same suffering, because it does seem like a lot of people, they either barrel through, or they recognize the discomfort of it, and they just avoid it altogether.
It might be just a piece of the Venn diagram between like guitar-y performing people and like empathic people who care about others' experiences, and that's not a full overlap of those circles. I think that's a smaller Venn diagram overlap that I think you are in, where some people would just be like, I got the guitar, come on. And I think of most of the facepalmy people are in that category. They're not in the super empathic, tuned in to what others are experiencing. And so that might be where the suffering happens, but it also might be where the more organic, more welcome sing-alongs happen.
It's interesting that puts suffering as a prerequisite for doing it right.
Yeah, which is probably true with a lot of art.
A lot of things, yeah. Caring. Well, then a lot of people do say, like, don't care. You shouldn't care what people think. There's a lot of sort of like, do what makes you happy, but when what makes you happy involves other people, it's like that simple math of just do what you like and don't care what other people think.
That's interesting. Yeah, maybe don't care what other people think about you is different than don't care what other people feel.
I like it. I like that. That's a good distinction. Don't care what people think about you, but do. So do you agree with that? Don't care about what people think of you, but do care how people feel.
I don't know about.
It's a good shot in the dark.
It's a good shot in the dark. Yeah.
As an opening proposition, it's.
I do care about what people feel, and and so like don't care what other people think. So just like do whatever and screw everyone else. That doesn't work for me.
Slap someone across the face. I don't care what you think.
I don't care what anyone thinks. I read a self-help book.
Wow. This makes me feel good.
But that's not, empathy is not a weakness, it's a strength, right? And but there's certainly value in saying don't live your life for the crowd. Don't judge everything by like, oh, how are people gonna look at this? I think, find your own voice. That's valuable.
Oh, yeah, that's good. This is good. I feel like we're looking at the Venn diagram. We're drawing Venn diagrams in space. And so let me add another circle to the Venn diagram, which is, what if you like crowds? What if you like performing to crowds? Because we did mention, you said like, what about performing? And then I'm not really performing, because when I do this sort of thing, it's very much like everybody participating. But I do also like to perform. Sure. I love to do that as well. And
That doesn't seem like a separate circle to me. That seems pretty firmly in that other circle, the first circle we mentioned.
The first circle we mentioned is which?
I don't know. Someone please read back the transcripts.
We need to see the diagram. We need something to point to. This is why diagrams are so important. Somebody made a fun of, like, I said something about a whiteboard, and somebody's like, "Oh, whiteboards," and I was like,
"No, whiteboard is one of those things. It's a wink to the right people. I feel like some people say whiteboard, and other people, certain people, like you and I both really like a whiteboard, and I've seen other people.
Think a whiteboard is the best.
Yeah, and I've heard other people that are like, "Oh, whiteboard. It's like a signal. It's like we're whiteboard people.
Whiteboard may be similar to a guitar. Bringing out a whiteboard at a party."
I would do that.
Oh God, the whiteboard guy is here.
I would do that. I used to bring out the Apple Master 866 at the party. I really would have parties. The Apple Master 866. Yeah, it's this like really old school sort of 50s looking apple peeler slicer. Have you ever seen one of these things? Yeah. You crank it, hand crank, and it moves along the little thing, and the apple peels and cores in front of you, and it's so amazing. I actually would also peels and cores. With this
the 855 peels without coring. The 866.
The 866.
Yeah. And peels.
Is this amazing little thing. It's got the little slicer, little thing, and I don't know how someone figured out that would work. And the first time we did it, we are like, this will never work. And then it happened, and we're like, what? And so then I would bring it out at parties and be like, okay, everyone. Yeah. I mean, when we were hosting parties.
The fourth party that you brought it to, they're like, this is the guy who brings the apple peeler. And
I didn't bring it. It was when we're hosting parties, and then when the night really gets going, that's when it's time to bring out the Apple Master 866.
It's like there's a certain flow of energy. The energy's is picking up.
It's like being a DJ.
Energy, and you're like, what's going to take it just right to the next level? Bring out the 866.
It's the same as being a DJ. You could time the music for just exactly the right moment to bring or you could bring out the Apple Master, peel and core a couple. Peel and core. Yeah, it really worked.
And core.
Oh man, I'm sure people still talk about those parties.
I really like the idea of somebody. I feel like this should be put into a movie of somebody who shows somebody the Apple Master 866 at their own party.
Yeah.
And then the next party they go to, they bring it. And so there's a few people that saw it the last time, but most people haven't, and they're just like, you kill with the Apple Master 866. The second time, the third time you keep go, it's like, and then you like there's.
It almost sounds like a commercial, but it's one of those things that
later you're still bringing it to all your parties.
If it was in a movie, excuse me, one of those many things. If it was in a movie, you might think it was sort of fake, like, oh, that was written by a writer. Yeah, but you'd be like, but it was based on real life.
Don't you think that that's most of what you see in movies? That this funny thing happened, and then they're sort of like, this is going in my movie? Like the movie just is their trash bin for all the funny things that they noticed during the day?
Maybe so.
Trash bin sounds wrong.
Yeah.
Collector bin. Better than trash bin.
We all have those collector bins.
Collector bins of the funny things. I need one of those. I need to have a bucket for all the sort of like things that make me go ooh.
Well, we had that for a long time. We kept the Empire of Funny, that list of things that were funny. Do you remember this? And then we videoed ourselves having beers at a pizza place and reading through them and dying of laughter. And it turned out I had switched off the microphone, so it was like entirely silent footage of us dying of laughter.
It's probably pretty good B-roll.
Yeah.
Of like a couple of guys laughing at a bar. It's sort of, it's probably very usable B-roll.
Yeah, you like we could license it and be rich. We get $7.50 a year.
Yeah.
$7.50. Well, okay.
So I like this theme though. Like there's the guitar, the whiteboard, the apple peeler. Like these are things where you're sort of like, I mean, yeah, the theme, what's the connecting dots are things that sort of like sometimes really can work and connect people and make a party go to the next level, and then other times maybe they They don't
I like how we're
work.
counting. We just counted whiteboard as a party enhancer, just like
Thing that no one ever did.
It got swept in there.
But I might next time. I might just bring my whiteboard.
You never know.
Doing? You see someone coming into a party with one of those giant whiteboards.
Here's a good sign about whiteboards. In defense of whiteboards, is kids love a whiteboard. So I used to have one up here, and I took it away from up here, put it in the little hallway, and often my kids and their friends will come by, and always they'll stop and write. And I feel like what kids want to stop and do is a good barometer, because I think grown-ups, we often want to do the same, but we sort of are conditioned out of it, or we're just like busied out of it. But it's a good barometer, because a kid will be like, rewarding, and they'll just start rewarding themselves by using a whiteboard.
Well, along that line, how about Legos? Like, kids will love Legos, but like, what if you were having an adult party? You just served the hors d'oeuvres, you made the drinks,
so fun.
And then you just like dumped a bunch of Legos on the living room floor.
Fun idea! What a fun idea! A Lego party for grown-ups.
A Lego party for grown-ups. And
you know what you could do?
You know what you could do? You could have voting. You could sort of like build something, and it could be abstract, it could be real, it could be whatever. But at a certain time, you gotta set a time, like at 10 p.m. sharp.
This maybe appeals to you because you're probably a master Lego builder, because that just took the fun out of my party, because I'd be sort of like, instead, because what I like about it is the having drinks, aimless conversation, building something, laughing, smashing, breaking, whatever, but like not like sitting down and crafting. That feels like it would take it down to like the battle of the two super whoever
nerds.
Yeah, I was going for a different word. Super builders. But
there was somebody had a puzzle at a party once, and I whatever that sort of energy that you were just describing was the energy that I took. I was just like, I am doing this, and then like people would come, and I'd be like, hey, how's it going? and I was just so into it. But then like this is like other people got into it. It was like 6 people who were really sort of like working hard on it. But I do feel like I had a intensity that was sort of inappropriate, and yet I really I was like, this is I
shared
enjoy that.
Fellowship. There you go. Well, I'm glad that we sorted out party tips from Sam and Chris.
This is where people will come for party tips in the future, I'm sure. Oh, did you hear about that party tips channel?
Yes, they
whiteboards, Legos,
whiteboards, Legos.
I must have done something wrong. It didn't work the first time I tried it.
But the core concept here is, what is it? It's like and I feel, because I remember a friend of mine asked me, he's just like, oh, I have this great Dungeons and Dragons group where we get together. He's just like, would you be interested in doing that? And I can imagine that being,
have you ever done that?
Really fun for somebody else.
I have never.
But I don't.
Oh, not you. Yeah, that's where you were going.
Yeah, I don't. And I sort of, I kind of feel like when I was sort of like, maybe that's not for me. It felt bad. It's like, I don't like your Lego parties either.
Probably if you grow up doing Dungeons and Dragons, you have, especially if of a certain vintage that we are, you have a certain shame that was foisted upon you about it. So a little certain social shame. So maybe it's like you usually keep that pretty close to the chest. You keep it closed, and then
sort of admit it.
You let someone in, like, you may be one of us, and they're like, oh, it's not for me. And you're like, fine, shut the doors.
I think it's cool. No, I do think it's cool, and he was telling me about it too, about how it's a real creative, sort of almost like authorly activity where the person who, do you know about this? I didn't really know.
I don't know about it, but
like making up a scenario, and then somebody's like, I mean, I'm making this part up, but something like if you roll this dice and against there's a dragon, and if you get this, then you. So somehow the dungeon master is presenting situations, I guess, that they're making up somewhat or completely.
Uh-huh.
And so it's very creative, and so if the person's a great storyteller, you could imagine it being really fun. And I totally respect people doing it, but I don't think I would like it. But my daughter is now starting to get into it, and with her, she's got a few buddies who like doing Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm psyched.
Yeah. Well, yeah, what I was going to say is I think that now, like when we were kids, I think it's because of the internet. We probably talked about this before, but like, I think there were fewer options. And so you either did the thing or the thing or the thing, it's like baseball or whatever, or Dungeons and Dragons. But now there's just like a flourishing of options. And I think there's a lot of things that are very Dungeons and Dragons-esque that are pretty mainstream nowadays. So I don't think it has the same vibe that it did when we were kids. That was like, oh, that's pretty heavily nerd territory, but it was probably awesome nerd territory. It was creative and the equivalent of all kinds of things today that people, I don't know, Minecraft or whatever it is, that people are like, oh yeah, no big deal, all the kids do that, but it was
right.
less accepted. And it's hard to shake those things. It's hard to shake those associations even decades later. But maybe some people just are able to embrace them. But anyway, I take your point. I agree. It is cool. Get into your thing. Whatever getting into your thing is. I also think just nerds generally turn out to be interesting. I favor nerds. I sympathize and favor.
Yeah. I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, really, I think what is at the heart of being a nerd is enthusiasm, and just admitting as well, and maybe
right.
even better than just enthusiasm, enthusiastically embracing something that maybe has been marginalized, which maybe is a little bit different. But if you were into Dungeons and Dragons back in the 80s, and you knew that some people, like you're saying, some people thought it was uncool, and you were like, I don't care that people think this is uncool. This is awesome. They just don't know. They've never even done it. And so, and being willing to be enthusiastic about something that's unpopular is like, that's the coolest thing in the world. And that's so great.
Ties back to this whole, like, don't care what other people think about you. It's almost sort of like, yeah, okay, I understand that I'm supposed to do this, be interested in this, and this, but I'm not. I'm totally interested in this thing that you may reject, but it's fun for me.
Yeah.
Way to go, nerds.
So yeah, way to go, nerds. And and imagine how much more horsepower a person has when they're plugged into their enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Versus somebody who has some enthusiasm for something, is convinced that it's not cool, and is like, well, I went to a Dungeons and Dragons party. I had the funnest time of my entire life. Came home, my brother told me it was stupid. So now I'll never do it again.
Right.
And then
and suddenly I started talking like this.
And that was the beginning of my bad posture.
Oh man, I lost it with whatever that the posture got me. It got my.
Oh, you had a good thought, and I pulled it off.
It's all right though. That's sort of. That's all. Maybe we should just end it there because I fumbled the ball. I had a thing and then it just bobbled it.
Apologies.
No problem.
All right.
Way to go, nerds.
And broadcast.